All right, welcome to American Government. So a couple of things about this class. First, like I said, we're obviously not going to be here for long. I don't know how to use their setup in this room because with the other equipment there, it looks a lot more complicated than I want to deal with. So we have a PowerPoint, but I will upload it for you guys to see afterwards. My name's Andrew Sartorius. I'm an attorney by profession. I've been teaching here for about 6 years. Lincoln's a pretty awesome place. I hope you guys are all enjoying it so far. Most of you are probably sophomores, right? Or freshmen? It's an 8 a.m. class. I know that it's going to be tough, but please bring as much energy as you can because my goal is to try and make this pretty enjoyable. American government can be a pretty, it can either be a really interesting topic to people or it can be a rather dull topic, and let's try and go for the interesting version of it. So let me pull up my notes and we'll just jump right into it. If you guys have been in Canvas yet, you should see the syllabus. It has everything that we're going to accomplish in terms of the class. Effectively, there are, I think, 4 or 5 different grading criteria. There's going to be 2 exams. My exams are open book, open note. This is because the biggest thing I'm trying to test with you guys is your ability to think about the different things we're talking about. I don't particularly care about, dates or anything like that. What I'm focused in on is whether or not you can synthesize these ideas into something that's usable for you. So let me jump there. All right, now that I was ahead of myself, for materials you should have there's 1 textbook. Do you guys all have access to the textbooks through the new online thing? Perfect. So we're roughly going to cover 1 chapter per week. So each week you're going to read the chapter. There's going to be a little assignment. There's going to do some lectures, and there's participation points. The participation is just to make sure you're going to keep up with everything. I'm also, for my online students, there's going to be a quiz. For my in-person students, you can take the reading quiz if you want. It'll be optional because you're going to participate in here. But for my online students, just to kind of make sure that I'm keeping up with where you're at, you're going to need to take that, which will be part of your participation grade. I'm going to tell you guys in here right now, 2, so in the physical classroom, I don't want to have to do reading quizzes, but if I don't get any participation, then that's usually where I end up going in a semester. Sorry, lost my place. So the main idea of this class is about how power works in the United States, how it's gained, used, limited, and fought over. We don't have to agree on all the ideas that we have here, but one of the things that's really important to me is that we engage in discussions that are productive. So there's a couple of things to talk about with how that works before we get into the actual policies of the class. First off, normal discussion, I want you to be critical of ideas, not people. So if somebody says something that you don't agree with, it's not that person's such an idiot, it's I don't like that idea because of this. We're going to use reason, not vibes, like that just doesn't vibe right with me, or I don't like that because, and then your ideas. So we're going to always try to assume good faith, but we can demand clarity. So what makes discussions feel safe to you guys? And don't worry about raising hands or anything, just shout out answers, because I skipped over a chunk of my normal introduction that I do, but we'll cover that in a little bit. So what makes discussions feel safe to you? And I'll just 2 or 3 people shout out something.
Not being judged.
Not being judged, perfect.
Keeping it like logic and reason based instead of emotion.
Yeah. Perfect. So, and I'll tell you guys, the reason I have you shout things out is I have a condition called albinism. Awesome white hair, terrible vision. So I'm not going to see any of your hands. If you raise your hand, I'm totally going to miss it. So just shout out my name. If you need my attention, if you're not hearing me, if you're missing something, be like, hey, Andrew, help me with this. Also, please call me Andrew. A couple of judges that I have lunch with sometimes gave me trouble because there was an attorney who taught here at Lincoln decades ago, and he insisted that everybody call him doctor. While lawyers have a doctoral degree, a Juris Doctorate, we don't go by doctor. So I could have you call me Mr. Sartorius, but Sartorius is such a hard name to pronounce, so please just call me Andrew. It's the easiest way of doing that. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, you can feel free to ask me at any time. I'm an open book when it comes to albinism, when it comes to pretty much any topic you want to discuss. So yeah, not feeling judged is a big thing. Using logic instead of being like, emotional, that's a big one. If things get tough, you can nope out of it, right? Like if we're talking about something that's a trigger for you, by all means be like, hey, I'm gonna take a minute and talk about things. There are like maybe 2 or 3 topics that I think might be triggering in this class. It's kind of bland, to be honest with you guys, but if that's something that, gets to you, no problem. So we talked about the discussion component. There's a couple of policies to discuss. First off, we talked about the grading categories. For 20% of your grade is going to be the exams. This is all in the syllabus too. 20% of your grade is going to be a final paper. This is going to be a pretty open-ended thing. I will probably give everybody a communal prompt that you'll use, and then you can write about whatever you'd like. Within that, I'm going to give you guys the ability to turn in like your thesis and your bibliography, and I'll be happy to look at that for you. You don't have to do that. It's not graded. The papers, I think I said up to 2,000 words, so I think that's up to 4 pages. I'm trying hard to not kill you guys with work, but I do want to see how you're thinking and stuff like that. Late work, I generally don't accept late work. I will accept it if there's something going on that you need to turn it in. If you're traveling with a sport, if you are really ill, no problem. My rule of thumb though, try to let me know ahead of time, because it's a lot easier for you to be like, hey, can you... Yeah, good, that's still running. It's a lot easier for me to be like, for you to be like, hey, I'm gonna be out next Tuesday, can I have an extension on this? Than for you to come to me 3 weeks after it's due. Because at that point, I'm probably not gonna be too sympathetic about whatever happened. Unless, of course, like you've been out for that whole time. Like, then I'll work with you. I'm pretty flexible when it comes to things, but as a general rule, no late work. Artificial intelligence, that's huge now. And I love it. It's one of the coolest things ever. Don't use it for this class. And the reason I say that is because I'm testing how you think. And AI is fantastic for a lot of things. And you can certainly use it to help you find resources or help you structure your paper and things like that. But at the end of the day, I want to hear what you think. And if I don't get that, then I'm not going to be able to grade you on how you're thinking, if that makes sense. There's no right or wrong answers. For me, it all comes down to what the discussion that you bring to the table is. And so if you're not doing that, if ChatGPT is doing that, or Claude, or whatever system you want to use is doing that, it's not going to flow well. It's not going to work for you. You're not going to do as well as you think you're going to do, and you're going to be angry because, honestly, it's probably just easier to write your ideas than to have ChatGPT write your ideas for you. So you've been warned. And then we talked about how online sections are going to get a copy of these recordings. This is going to be on an unlisted YouTube channel, so you guys can watch it too, but I will take it down at the end of the semester, so any ideas that are expressed in here won't be around forever. You have to have the link to be able to find it. Any questions about, I know I kind of hopped over a couple of things, but are there any questions about the general outline of the course? Sweet. We talked about that. All right, so we're going to jump right into content today. Your first question is, what is politics? And there was a lovely slide with all this written up for you guys. I promise I'll distribute it once I get back to my office and upload it to this. But simply put, politics is the process of making collective decisions under conditions of disagreement and limited resources. So this kind of is really cool, and we're going to have a mini history lesson. Yes, it's a little bit of American history. You're absolutely right when you said that was the class. In the very beginning, so right after Homo sapiens evolved, we were hunter-gatherers, and we spent all of our time going around the world looking for things to eat, because if we didn't, we'd die. You know, we didn't have farming at that point, so we'd go find some berries and gather those berries, and that would be something we would consume. Or we would go, excuse me, or we would go try and kill some sort of animal, and that would be our meal for the day. Interestingly enough, I'm reading a book called Sapiens, I'm pretty sure. And in it hypothesizes that humans invented the first tools to break bones open to get at the marrow that was left after, like, an animal was killed by a predator, and then the carrions, like jackals and stuff, had what was remaining of the carcass, but no animal had been able to get to the bone marrow until humans developed tools to break bones open. So gruesome, but interesting. All this changes, however, once we develop the ability to farm. So when we move from being hunter-gatherers to farmers, that frees up a whole bunch of time. Imagine if all of a sudden you didn't have to spend all day every day doing what you do all day every day. What would you do with all your time? College is a great example of that, because I remember going from high school, where I was occupied pretty much 12 hours a day with school and then extracurriculars and homework and everything, to having like 4 hours a day that I had to do things and all this free time. I personally use my time to watch way too many movies, but you know, it's the same sort of thing. Humans who spent all their life wandering around looking for things to eat, all of a sudden were able to grow the food they needed. This enabled us to develop societies. And so the whole concept of a society is that we're going to live together and cooperate. You don't need as many people to farm as you do to hunt and gather food. So this opens up the ability of different people to specialize in different things. This is when we start seeing art and laws and building structures and these things that didn't exist until this time. We're going to fast forward a couple thousand years and talk about some of the philosophies of what we get for giving up some of the freedom and what we give up in exchange for that. And this gets to the writings of a guy named Locke. And Locke came up with this concept of a social contract. I'm sorry?
John Locke?
Yep, the same one. And the idea of and I don't expect you guys to know all of this, but I want to go over it to give you a primer as to where the United States falls into all of this. And so to do that, I kind of want to do a Cliff Notes version of world history. So John Locke comes up with this idea of a social contract. And the idea of a social contract is that we give up freedoms to live in a society. You can't just go around doing whatever you want, but in exchange you get lots of cool things. Like the electricity and the building that we're in, all these things that are paid for by the government. Sure, you pay tuition, but to set up the tuition sort of thing that you have to pay. So this concept of the social contract is kind of what we live under now. And there's three main components of what I think you need to know when it comes to what this whole concept of politics means today. And the first is that we have to work together. When we start living in a society, all of us are going to have different ideas, but we're all in it together. Unless you want to leave the society, which, you know, who wants to go live on a desert island besides me? Was that you raising your hand?
Oh, no, it's right.
As long as you want to be part of the society, you're in the society, so we have to work together to try and figure out what we're going to do. The way that I have it in my notes is we are stuck together. The other component is that there is always scarcity. While we live in this society, we don't have the resources to do absolutely everything we'd want. And we can all think of an example of that in our own lives. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if college was free? I agree, but what would we use to pay for that? Or wouldn't it be awesome if we didn't have to pay taxes? Okay, but then who's going to build the roads? So we pick as a society the different things we're going to prioritize. Resuming, there we go. And this inevitably is going to lead to conflict, which in a good functioning society will also result in compromise. In other words, democracy is organized disagreement. Politics, it's the way that we get to that compromise. So for example, we can talk about what's an issue that you guys care greatly about? In the past, my students have cared a great deal about the price of laundry. Is that still top of your list? No? Parking fees, free speech on campus, people changing your regular timed class to an 8 a.m. class.
Yes. That's horrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a great example of politics. And you have me to thank for that. I apologize. I'll just explain to you, there were some staffing rearrangements. So the person originally slated to teach this course is now the department chair, so I picked up some of her courses. But I also still practice law. So I either teach like first thing in the morning or late in the afternoon, so that I can still do my work. Yeah, changing a class. That's a pretty interesting thing. And there's we can basically run it through that framework. We've got to all cooperate, right? The faculty, the students, everybody kind of has to figure out how we're going to make things work. There's a scarcity. There's only so many professors to go around. There's only so much money that the university can pay people to come here. And there's also only so many students, right? So we have this conflict. Nobody really wants to be here at 8 a.m., including me. That's why I have a giant mug of espresso. But also, we got to get this class taught. Everybody needs this to graduate. And so the compromise is that, hey, we're here at 8 o'clock. I'm going to be incredibly willing to work with all of you because I, too, am still wiping the sleep out of my eyes. But that's politics at its core. There's different sides of the idea. People want it to be done different ways. But in the end, we get to something that hopefully will work for everyone. All right, we've got 20 minutes left and 40 minutes of lecture left. So hopefully we'll make it all work. So we're going to practice discussion, this structured discussion that we were talking about. So I'm going to give you a series of things, and I want you guys to discuss with me and yourselves, is this politics? So we have 5 scenarios. You guys are going to vote about whether it's politics, not politics, or it depends. And again, for me, there's no right or wrong answer, typically. it's all going to depend on how you justify your position. So 1, the university raises fees for athletics. Is this politics?
I'd say it is.
Why?
Because it's dealing with like resource management and deciding like it changes like your tuition price and such.
You have to work with other people to achieve it. You have scarcity, the scarcity of money and allocating funds, and you have disagreement that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah. Anybody want to champion the flip side? All right. Well, we'll move on to 2. A friend group decides where to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you guys 100% on both of these so far. So first off, with number 1, certainly political. Number 2, I don't think anything gets more political than friend groups. Like, we're basically drilling down to that kind of concept of local government at its best. And at first, when I was reading through these prompts, I was like, haha, great answer of no. And I was like, no, wait a minute. Can you think about, I mean, I should have probably told you guys this. I've got 3 little kids. I've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And my God, deciding what we're going to eat each evening, it's like negotiating a nuclear peace deal. But Charlotte got to pick what we ate last night. No, I picked what we ate last night. But Charlotte agreed, so we can't do what she wants to do. AJ, it's fine. You want to eat pancakes for dinner. Yeah, but not if Charlotte wants to eat them. Wow, politics at its best. But the motivations don't quite make sense. So number 3, a city decides whether to fund more police or more social workers. Let's hear from this side of the room.
Let's see it.
Yeah, why?
Because, I guess, well, I don't know. I actually never quite know.
I'd say it is.
Okay.
Because it's deciding whether to get more social workers or to get more of the police commission.
Yeah. Anybody want to throw anything else in? This one, I think, illustrates that concept of scarcity the best, right? And we see this all the time. If you follow local politics at all, it happens all the time here in Jefferson City. Like, do we want to, we don't want to raise taxes, so we've only got so much money to work with. Do we want to build a convention center, or do we want to get new police cars? Is there a way to do both? 4, a school district bans a book. Politics? Do you say no? Who said no?
Say anything dealing with people politics, really. If enough people care about it, it'll just end up becoming something good. Really depends on how much people care about it.
Yeah.
So it's just with that one, I say it depends.
I think so too. I think the thing that makes this one tricky is that lack of scarcity in it. But I would agree that despite what the texts might say, this is definitely a political thing. Because we're fighting about that idea of what is permissible. Perhaps the scarcity is that everybody thinks that they are the sole holder of the moral high ground, right? And then 5, a company changes its parental leave policy. Political? Yeah? Anybody else?
You said parental leave, that's like maternity leave and such?
Yep.
Yeah.
This one I was really on the fence about. I feel like this one depends on how they did it, right? Like, is it a board of directors that did it, or is it some old dude who's just like, screw kids, they don't need to spend time with their parents. Because that whole concept of politics here is arriving at some sort of compromise, and maybe it's the fact that I'm old and jaded. I'm not that old, but I am very jaded. But maybe it's that makes me feel like this was more of a unilateral decision. Or somebody just saying this is the way it is. So I think it depends on whether or not there was compromise involved in that as to whether or not it's politics. So good job, guys. Let's talk about the things that worked really well for this. I know I pushed you guys outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but what I'm looking for when we have discussions like this, and what I'm going to be looking for when I'm grading essays, is basically this formula. You have a claim plus evidence, and most importantly, your reasoning. And that's what everybody did when we were talking about this here. It's yes is a kind of short answer. Does it answer the question? Sure. But it's yes because. And that because component is the biggest thing I'm looking for. With something like what is politics, there's not very much evidence you can bring in, but when we get to some of these other things like, should we have a flat tax rate or should it be progressive? That becomes something where you can be like, well, yeah, but if we do this math, then this happens. Or, well, in my experience, this is the thing that happens. You can bring in those outside things to be that evidence component. Do you need it every time? It's whether or not you want to support your answer with it. But the thing I care most about is that reasoning idea. So an example would be, should the government be allowed to limit speech in some cases? What do you guys think? Our Constitution says we have the right to free speech, but is that an absolute right? Is there times that free speech is a bad idea? I'm not limiting your speech right now. Shout out and answer. Did you have something to say?
I think the only exception you could make is like morality, I guess. Like if someone runs around saying like the most heinous thing known to mankind. But I feel like the government, it's not the government's job to necessarily enforce that. It's like more so societal constructs within people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm pretty sure if like one of us just like stood up and shouted like a bunch of slurs and like said they hated babies or like I don't even know, like started stabbing people or something, I feel like the people would generally be like, hey, stop that. Not like the government should come in and like, you know what I mean?
Well, if you start stabbing people, the government should definitely come.
Well, yeah. But
I agree with you. And I promise you we'll get to the answer in later on in the chapter. But I'll tell you, the government absolutely limits speech. And it kind of becomes contextual, right? But that was a perfect answer. And the reason it was a perfect answer is because you expressed an opinion. Can the government limit speech? Well, yeah, kind of. So that's it depends. You brought in evidence, and then you explained your reasoning. So you followed the formula precisely. You would have gotten a really good grade on that essay question if it were an essay question. So that's the example of kind of what I'm looking for in here. And we'll talk a little philosophically about it if we have time at the end. Before we talk about kind of why I feel like this is going to feel different for you guys and why I'm really pushing it, I want to go over what we're going to do for this week. And then I want to finish up today by just talking a little bit about why I'm pushing you to think differently, why this is going to be a lot of critical thinking. So for this week, you guys have access to the book, I hope. If you don't, come talk to me, and together we'll try and figure out how to fix that, because I don't know myself. But you're going to read chapter 1. You guys are here in class, but if you want to go back and watch this kind of sporadic lecture in this weird lab room, you certainly can. It'll be available to you. You are going to have to look at the PowerPoint because I couldn't put it up here. I would encourage you to also review the syllabus. Then there's a small assignment for you guys. I think one of the things that's the most interesting as we go through this, if I were to ask all of you what your political party is, or whether you're liberal or conservative, I think half the people in this room give me an answer, and they say, I'm this. And if I ask you why, and I really drill down into that, you may not be able to tell me why. Or you might have some ideas of why you have that political ideology. My job here isn't to tell you what you are or what you should do. And so I'm going to try and always present both sides of an issue. I will tell you that I'm pretty middle of the road politically. Full disclosure. I think there's good people on both sides. But one thing I want to do to try and help you guys as we're talking about this stuff, and as you're kind of deciding what it is that you believe in and what's important to you, is help you see where your values kind of shape where you are ideologically, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And then once we've talked about all this stuff for the semester, we're going to do the same activity again. And we're going to see how this class has impacted you. So for this week, your assignment is to do, it's a 16 question survey from Pew Research. You're going to take that, and then you're going to write a basically 200 to 300 word statement about, was there anything surprising you saw? Do you agree with what they say you're aligned with? Do you disagree? Was there any questions that were difficult for you to ask? You could do this at any point throughout the week. You don't have to do it today. You don't have to do it on the due date. It'll be due Sunday evening. It's already in Canvas and launched for you. This video will go up too. So effectively, if you have already reviewed the syllabus, and because you're sitting here, what you guys have to do is keep coming to class, watch the videos if you're at home, read chapter 1, do the survey, write the essay. And then, not for you guys, but for those of you, not for you guys in person, but for you guys at home, there will also be the reading quiz. I will launch that probably Tuesday or Wednesday. And all of you in here, like I said, if you want to test your reading, there's unlimited attempts on it. It'll be 6 to 8 questions, multiple choice, and unlimited attempts. So you can basically do it if you want to test yourselves at home. You can keep doing it until you get your perfect score. All right. So I think I teach different than most Lincoln University professors because I really focus on, and I mean, this is what students have told me, so if I'm incorrect, please also tell me. I really try and focus on how you guys are thinking about things and try to develop your ability to think critically. And I want to explain to you guys why that is in the last 7 minutes. Throughout high school, you were probably told, well, throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, you were probably told that, like, this is the path to getting the answer. And this is the answer. But the real world exists in so many different gray areas. And when it comes to things like politics or what the best course of action is for things, so many times there's more than one right thing. If you want to be a lawyer and you're going to law school, you will learn that the proper answer to any question is "it depends," followed by a good explanation. And so while I don't want to force you to think like lawyers yet, I'll reserve that for my upper division classes, I do want to challenge you to think outside the box. And that's becoming increasingly difficult because with the advent of modern technology, the kind of synthesis of ideas, the drive to make you produce your own unique work, it's not there as much as it used to be. So while I know I'm asking a lot with like a final essay and having essay questions on my final and midterm and stuff, I want you to walk into it prepared, and I want you to see it as an excellent opportunity to grow your brain. Because what separates high school students from college students, in my opinion, is that ability to bring critical thinking skills to whatever you're working on in the future. So I don't want you to see it as intimidating. I want you to see it as a great opportunity. And I'll be here to help you along the way. Lastly, if you have any questions as you're going through this material, because I'm putting this on YouTube and because there's the risk that somebody finds it, I am not going to I'm not going to tell you my cell phone number on the video. I'm not going to put it up on the screen for you guys to see, but it's in the syllabus that you can get through Canvas. Feel free to call me or text me. Be sure you tell me what section you're in, so I know how to find you in Canvas. Be sure to tell me your full name, because if I get a text message from a random number that says, hey, when's the thing due? I'm probably going to think it's spam, okay? Just telling you guys. And that happens more than you think. So just be professional with, hey, it's Andrew from your poli-sci class. I meet with you Monday morning. You don't have to know that this is section 1. It doesn't matter. But I meet with you at 8 a.m. All right, great. Now I know where to go. Can you tell me what the assignment is again? And then I'll be able to get back to you. You can call me, text me, email me, message me through Canvas. Whatever you need to get a hold of me is perfectly fine with me. Now that we've gone through all of that, I want to leave the last 2-3 minutes if you guys have any questions. All right, I will tell you, I usually teach Tuesday, Thursday classes. And so this 50-minute format is going to be tough for me because I've got to condense down a little bit. So if I'm going over ever, please yell at me and we'll stop. Question?
Is albinism caused by a lack of melanin, or is it like a genetic thing?
So it is genetic, but it causes a lack of melanin. So since we're sitting here in what I presume is a biology lab, for me, there's different types, but for me, there's a protein called tyrosinase that isn't produced in a functional way, and that tyrosinase somehow contributes to the production of melanin, and so I don't have that. And then there's some other anatomical differences within the structure of my eye. But yeah, it's genetic. So my wife has albinism too, and when we got married, we weren't sure whether or not we'd have the same type or different types. If we had the same type, all of our kids will have albinism. If we had different types, none of them would have it. And so when my oldest was born, was more excited about the color of his hair than whether or not he was a boy or a girl, both of which were surprises. And turns out all of our kids have albinism. I'll show you guys a picture next time, but they're pretty cute kids. Other questions? I told you I'm an open book. I'll tell you anything.
Are you white?
Am I white? Yes. Am I Caucasian? Yes, I'm also Caucasian. But I have friends that are black who have albinism too, and they've got the coolest hair ever because my one friend has orange hair. It's the coolest hair I've ever seen. Other questions?
Is it hard to teach a class where it's trying to teach us about the policies and the Constitution when our current government is unconstitutional?
Ooh, that's a loaded question that really dips into my political beliefs, but yes. And I'll tell you, without going into detail about whether or not I approve or disapprove about the policies of the conservative or liberal movement, one of the things that makes it very difficult to teach about government is the way that things are constantly in flux. So as an attorney, our major source of truth when it comes to the law is going to be the Supreme Court. And the present Supreme Court has been overruling lots of longstanding precedents and releasing opinions that are logically inconsistent. So I'll tell you what I teach graduate advanced school law sometimes too, and I'll tell you what I told them on the first day. One of the things that's bizarre when we talk about the Constitution is that the way we're interpreting it today under the current court could be vastly different than what we're using in a year. So it's difficult from that standpoint in that we've got a lot of movement right now in the short term. But if we look at the long-term ideas and we look at kind of what was intended with the way that things are set up, it's pretty easy, because the genius of our political system is that it was really designed in a way to allow that discourse to create the arena where the conservative and liberal ideas kind of butt heads and had the melding of ideas. And I believe that that's one of the greatest political systems that has ever been created. So is what's going on right now ideal? Probably not. But if we look at the way that it's actually set up and structured, that's a pretty cool system. And if we had people who believe in that system and help us get back to it, it'd be a much better place. Does that make sense? I'll double down and say that the Senate, for example, with the filibuster was designed for gridlock. And the filibuster is basically, we'll get to this later on, but anybody can basically stand up and start speaking and kill a bill. They can just start talking and never stop, so they never actually get to decide whether or not to make something a law. And so the idea of doing something like that is that everybody had to agree. If you and your significant other were trying to decide what you're going to have for dinner, and my wife and I do this all the time. I'm like, I want Chinese food, and my wife's like, I want Indian. If we were to fight about it and try and argue about what's better about one versus the other, eventually one of us is going to give up. But if we said neither one of these options are on the table, we'd have to eventually get to a place where we found something we both agreed on. And that's the way that filibuster is designed to work, so that everybody has to come together to cooperate rather than just beat the other side down. So that's just one example of the way that I think that it would be awesome if everybody believed in the way it's supposed to work. Did I cop out on your question, or did I answer it?
Nah, that was good.
Anybody else? All right, perfect. I will see you guys Wednesday then, and we're just a little over time, so my apologies.